Muhami Matters with Chris Adams, powered by CJA Consulting.
Can an ex stop a female from seeing her children?
No, according to federal law 41 of 2022, automatically it is joint custody. We come from secular country as well.
Yes.
It'd be a bit difficult for us to follow Sharia law, of course.
Completely, yeah. Is it possible to relocate back to my home country with my children?
I'd say, unless if you have your partner's permission, please don't do that. Considered as child abduction.
Welcome to Muhami Matters, the place where credibility meets clarity in legal and professional services. I'm your host, Chris Adams, founder of Muhami and CJA Consulting. After 2 decades of working with professionals in the UK, Asia, and the Middle East, I'm on a mission to bridge the gap between law, business, and connect you with trusted experts. Every episode of Muhami Matters is designed to empower, inform, and connect you with trusted legal advisors, respected industry experts, and influential thought leaders, providing insights, strategic perspectives, and practical advice. Whether you're a lawyer growing your practice, a business leader navigating strategic decisions, or simply seeking clear, actionable guidance, you're in the right place. For more insights, visit us online. But for now, let's dive into today's conversation.
Hello, everyone. This is Sam from She Knows Best.
And I'm Zarqa from Yungo Law.
And today we are going to be answering your burning questions about divorce. Zarqa, it's lovely to meet you. It's lovely to hear about your work with Muhami and Yungo Law.
Thank you. I met yourself, Sam, through Chris. Muhami
Yes.
provides another platform for people who want legal advice as well.
And She Knows Best recently entered into a beautiful partnership with Muhami where women have credible, expert legal advice for matters that they might not know who to approach and the steps to take. So it's a really beautiful partnership, and it's lovely to have you here to speak with me today.
Thank you so much.
What are the first legal steps that a female needs to take if she would like to file for a divorce in the UAE?
So the first thing I'd say is sit down, speak to one another, and see whether you can agree the terms of the divorce. So this will be the alimony, the child custody, the child support. Because once you decide whether it can be agreed or it can't, then you know what legal steps you need to take. If, for instance, there are certain things you can agree, but there are probably minor stuff that can't be agreed, you can always instruct a mediator. So what a mediator does is they bridge the gaps and they help you try and communicate your differences. So the next step is if, say, for instance, you can agree the terms or, there's just little bits and bats how you can't. What I'd advise you to consider is a settlement agreement. It's very cost effective in comparison to having a lawyer who does the whole process through. What I would still advise you is even if you have a settlement agreement, still get a lawyer to draft it. But also what we find with a lot of women is because they are not working, their husbands will get their lawyers to draft the settlement agreement, and when they come to us and we see the settlement agreement, we realise it's more favourable to the husband, and then we're advising them that, do you know this, do you know this? So it's always best to get independent legal advice.
Okay.
And it's a good way to make sure that it dots the I's, crosses the T's. Yeah.
Of course.
And then after that, whether it's going to be agreed or not, the next step is the divorce. So to divorce in the UAE, if you haven't been married in the UAE, you need to make sure that your marriage certificate is attested by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And likewise, if you have children, their birth certificates have to also be attested by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And what you need to do is you need to make sure you've got copies of these and you've got copies of passports and IDs. So when you proceed to making the divorce application, you will have to attach these
And I think
the
that
application.
as well, Zarqa, sorry to interrupt, I think a lot of females will have these documents already because they are needed for various other processes.
visa process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that females shouldn't feel nervous to collect these documents because they will already have these documents anyway. So moving on then, Zarqa, how long does the divorce process typically take in the UAE?
So according to federal law 41 of 2022, you actually don't need to provide a reason for a divorce. This is known as a non-vote divorce. And because of that, the process is a lot quicker. It's probably a lot quicker than Europe, for instance.
Wow.
it could take 1 to 2 months.
Wow.
So what happens is when you divorce, it will go in for conciliation department and then it'll go in for judge. But we have found that obtaining a divorce here has been a very quick process.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Do I need a lawyer to get divorced in the UAE, or can I handle it myself?
Not necessarily. You can actually do this yourself if you want to do that. The thing is, as I've mentioned before, these are the documents you require. If you've got those documents, you can proceed with making the application. Now, the reason why some people instruct us is because certain things have to be done in Arabic.
Okay.
And, obviously, if you don't speak Arabic, you may not understand this. And the other thing is that when you go to make the application as well, it has to be done through the court portal and you have to use your UAE pass to do this as well. So what some people find is that the court portal can actually be a bit tricky for them to deal with. And because of that, they just don't want the stress. Because if you go through a roller coaster of emotions going through a divorce, so someone might decide, look, I don't want to deal with any of it. And then they might say, I just want the lawyers to handle it. It's the easiest way for me. The other thing we advise our clients is, look, it is expensive, divorces. And the way it works here is you have 3 separate applications. You have your divorce application, you have your alimony application, and you have your custody application. These separate applications, sometimes people find them expensive. So what we say to some clients is, if you want, why don't you do the divorce application yourself? We can assist you then with the custody application and the alimony application. And it's a way for them to save money. And again, going back, if they have agreed the terms of the divorce, we can do a settlement agreement. And then once we've done the settlement agreement, when they proceed with the divorce, they can attach a copy of the settlement agreement to the divorce.
Okay. Can an ex stop a female from seeing her children?
No. So according to federal law 421 of 2022, automatically it is joint custody. So
wow.
So a lot of people didn't realise as well. So so both parents have an automatic joint custody of the children and they have joint responsibility of the children as well. So unless if a court order states that you no longer have joint custody, there's no reason for you to no longer see your children. And the only way he could do that is, say, for instance, you're an unfit mother and you can prove this through the courts.
Okay.
And the courts then make an order to say, right,
okay,
sole custody goes to the father. But even then, they will still most likely probably give visitation rights to the mother to still see the children. So I'd say under no circumstances should you stop seeing your children unless if there's a court order in place which says otherwise.
Okay, I think that'll be very reassuring for many mothers.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if I was married in another country, do I need to follow that country's divorce laws?
Not necessarily. So if you're married, say, for instance, in the UK and you want a divorce here, since 2022, there is a law which is more favourable to expats. So you can use this law. With Abu Dhabi, in fact, they've got another law, which is Abu Dhabi Law 14 of 2021.
Okay.
So, and they follow this law instead. What the law also allows is that you can also rely on the law of your home country for divorce. So you can make a petition requesting the laws of your home country as well.
Wow, that's actually really interesting.
Two choices, technically.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of women, especially from the Western world, often worry that they will have to go back to their home country to begin divorce proceedings. That's really actually...
We've seen a shift in pattern, actually, because previously what we found is women would do that because what they were concerned about is Sharia law. It's a bit alienated to them. They're not accustomed to Sharia law. I mean, let's be honest, we're Muslim, but we come from secular countries as well.
Yes.
So even for someone like us, it'd be a bit difficult for us to follow Sharia law, of course.
Completely, yeah.
So based on that, yes, in the past, but now with the new law, there's more opportunities. So a lot more people are getting divorced in the UAE, and the UAE have done that because they've realised that it's an expat community who doesn't want to follow Sharia law. So they're very understanding of this.
Really refreshing to hear, actually, that change in mindset. Are prenuptial agreements enforceable in the UAE?
So there are no specific laws relating to prenuptial agreement. But, and what most people don't realise is, going back to federal law, sorry, I do refer to it a lot, Federal Law 41 of 2022, it actually states that you can agree the terms of your marriage contract.
Wow.
And you can decide terms during marriage and after your marriage. To me, that would say if you divorced, you could stay in your contract. This is how you want your divorce to happen. This is how we want the custody, the alimony, etc. So that, to an extent, says prenuptial agreement can be accepted.
Yes.
Abu Dhabi Family Civil Court actually have a template for a prenuptial agreement.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't realise that. And you can file that with the courts when you're going through a civil marriage.
That's amazing.
You can make an appointment just to file with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So which kind of gives you the impression that it is allowed.
Yeah.
And what some women don't realise as well is, I get calls from women saying, oh, I got married and I bought these assets and I don't have a prenuptial agreement. So what we say to them is, it's not an issue. You can have a postnuptial agreement. So this says, once you get married, you have an agreement which says how your assets are going to be distributed. Because a lot of women, they may accumulate assets, like properties, just in their name and what they want to make sure. And that's men as well. And what they want to make sure is that if they divorce, because divorce, unfortunately, is becoming a lot more common as well. So what they want to do is say, right, okay, well, what happens under those circumstances? We retain our own properties. If there's children, it's joint custody. And it helps make the divorce less messy. There's a prenuptial. And then if you do a postnuptial agreement, so this will be considered as a contract between a husband and wife, and it will be considered under civil transactional law. I bet you probably didn't know this, but in a nikah, you can actually agree the terms of your marriage in a nikah, and you can also agree what happens in the divorce. So I think UAE are already accepting and aware of something very similar to this, and that's why it's easier for them to consider this.
And that is so interesting, Zarqa, because as a British Muslim, a lot of women like myself would want to have a nikah when they get married. And how interesting that the UAE law has already incorporated.
Now you can tell Sunny.
Yes, I know. How interesting. Obviously, after a divorce, it's quite a turbulent time in a woman and, for the whole family. So after a divorce, is it possible to relocate back to my home country with my children?
I'd say, unless if you have your partner's permission, please don't do that.
Okay.
That's considered as child abduction.
Wow.
And normally when divorce is happening between two parties, one will place a travel ban on the children. So
Wow.
that, they can't be taken out of the country. If a travel ban's not being placed, the courts may order for the children to be returned back to their habitual residence. There is something known as the Hague Convention. This is an international treaty. And there's over 100 countries which are signed to this convention as well.
Wow.
Now, the UAE isn't a signatory to it.
Interesting.
They're not, The UK are. In the past, the UK wouldn't return children. Recently, we're finding they are. It's going to court and judges are making orders saying that they need to be returned to their last place of residence, and that's the UAE, and that's because the UK and UAE are building relationships, and also the UK are seeing that there's more laws which are more favourable to expats as well, and they are more understanding to expats as well. So I think because of this, they're more acceptable towards the idea of returning children back to their last place of residence.
Thank you, Zarqa. I think that's really helpful to know, because I think a lot of females in particular, after a divorce, will like to go back to the sanctuary of their family with the best intentions. But it's interesting to know, and actually
if you don't want to get in trouble with the law, it's always where stay put. Or just speak to your partner. Speak to your ex. Say, this is what I'm thinking. This is in the best interest. And see if you can come to an agreement.
I wanted to ask you, are there any legal protections available to women if they have experienced domestic abuse?
So I have written an article on our website, Yungo Law's website. So if anyone wants to have a look at that,
amazing.
And it provides information. And yes, there is a help. The 4 areas that come under domestic violence: finance, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and physical harm as well. So if you're someone who's married, whose partner doesn't pay towards your living costs, who is using finance as a way to gain power and control over you, again, that does fall under domestic violence. And I come across this where I've met women who say, I've been married, but I have nothing, because what this person has done is they pay for everything. They pay for the groceries. They pay for my clothes. They pay for even my sanitary pads. So pay for my sanitary pads. When they come to us, they have nothing. And they have nothing if they want to leave,
of course,
their marriage as well.
Yes.
Well, that is a form of domestic abuse as well. So there is a law that came out last year, Federal Law 13 of 2024. And this actually mentions that if there is an abuser and they have been found to be abusing, then they could receive a fine or a jail sentence.
Wow.
And our website goes into details of the fines and the sentences as well that they can receive. And the other thing is that if you've been through domestic violence, if you're someone that's been through sexual abuse or physical abuse, I would say go to the government hospital. In Dubai, it is Rashid Hospital. In Abu Dhabi, it is Sheikh Shakbut Hospital. Please go get a medical report. Even if you don't want to do anything, do get a medical report, because at least you've got something there. So later on, if you do decide to do something, there is a medical report. And every time you're abused, even if you don't want your partner to know, just go to the hospital, get a medical report, so there's something on the system. There's certain ways you can deal with this, depending on how you want to deal with it. You may be someone who's scared, who doesn't want to do anything yet.
Yeah.
If that is the case, that's fine. So when you go to the police and you report the incident, you can say to them, I just want to report the incident.
Okay.
And it just goes on file.
Okay.
It will do nothing. Or you could be someone that wants your partner to receive a warning.
Okay.
And they will do that as well.
Okay.
Or you want to take it further. But you don't need to suffer in silence just because you think he's going to find out and what's the consequences, because what you could do is just report it and just leave it to that. If it's related to emotional harm or financial harm, then you can go to the ministry. So you've got the Ministry of Community Development and the Ministry of Interior, and you can report it there.
Okay.
There's also foundations, shelters set up by the government.
Yeah.
And they've received training as well. So in Dubai, you've got Dubai Foundation for Women and Children.
Yeah.
In Abu Dhabi, you've got IWA, and you can go to them and ask them for assistance. And say, for instance, it's not safe for you to go home and you need a safe place. They will help provide an emergency shelter for you and your children. There are steps there. So don't please feel like you have to suffer in silence.
Thank you for that. And I know a lot of our viewers watching will feel a lot of comfort from listening to your words. So thank you so much. Can a female claim financial support if she has been a stay-at-home mum?
We've also, discussed previously about how you need a place to stay while the children are remaining with you. So that's separate to your daily allowance as well.
Okay.
And then also schooling.
Yes.
That's separate.
Yes.
And then also medical is separate. If you are going through an alimony application and it's going to take a few months for that to be dealt with, you could also make an application for a temporary allowance, which some women don't realise. And the temporary allowance, you get a decision within a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And this is just a quick decision from the courts to say, whilst your alimony application is in the process, that this is what your spouse must provide you with. And it's something.
Yes.
So it'll keep you going. Yeah.
So, your answer to the question where you gave lots of options for women who may be stay-at-home mums, often they feel powerless because they feel at the mercy of their husband or, the financial situation. But you gave such lovely options for women. I know that they will.
I think they need options.
They don't know, though. It's not out there. If you really dived into it, you probably would be able to find it. But to hear you say all of these options.
This is the problem. Living in a expat community, living in the UAE, some people feel alienated.
Yes.
And they feel like we don't know where we're going and which to attend to. And who will give me the right advice. But what they don't realise is there are options.
Yes.
And just don't feel alone. Just ask someone.
I think as expats as well, Zarqa, our instant reaction, I know for me, would be, I'm going to go back to the UK and just figure it out there. But it's so refreshing that if I am planning a future with my prospective husband or, to settle down here in the long term, that the law will provide options for me. So that's
and again, just going over the nikah, it's like I said to you, because tell what you can put in there. Speak to your partner and say, right, I want this in there, I want this in there. And if you divorce me, I want this in there, I want this in there. The nikah is supposed to be a form of protection for a woman.
Of course. I know in the UK, Zarqa, there are institutions and shelters that women can approach if they are suffering from domestic violence, such as Women's Aid or refuges available. Are there such places in the UAE?
In Dubai, you've got Dubai Foundation for Women and Children, and in Abu Dhabi, you've got IWA, and you don't need to suffer alone. What you could do is you could go to these shelters. But if, say for instance, it's not safe for you to go home because the abuse is, you're suffering from severe abuse, that it's a risk to your life to go home, then these places, just like the UK, can provide emergency shelter.
Hey.
But again, you might be someone that just wants to be heard. So going to a shelter may be something you want to do just because you want to feel heard. And it's like I said before, that going to a shelter or going to the police doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to take action.
Yes.
That's a choice up to you. But what you can do is make sure that the incident's been reported so that it's on record. So when you are ready, then you're going to be like, well, at least I've got a report of it. Because what happens, say, for instance, if you've been through domestic abuse, it is physical harm, and, you've had so many incidents of it, but what you've done is you've never reported it to anyone. And the day you decide to leave, you've got nothing to show for it. Where's your evidence? And this is why I say, look, you go through physical abuse.
Yeah.
You don't want him to know.
Yes.
Go to the hospital, get a medical report.
Yeah.
Go to the police, make a record of it. So when you are ready to take this step, there will be a record somewhere. And also, this is something that the courts are going to consider during the alimony as well. Because like I said, it's one of the factors they consider.
Yes.
Has there been abuse?
Yeah.
Has someone contributed to the divorce? So this is why I'm saying, look, just make sure you take the necessary steps.
True or false, Zarqa? A woman in Dubai can file for divorce without her husband's permission.
Correct.
True or false? The divorce process in Dubai is the same for all nationalities.
It depends where you're divorcing, whether it's also a secular country and whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim.
Okay. True or false? Divorce cases in Dubai always take years to finalise.
Incorrect.
True or false? If both spouses agree, they can get a divorce without going to court.
They have to still get the divorce finalised by the courts, but they can agree the terms without having to go through the courts.
True or false? A woman can lose financial support if she remarries after divorce.
It depends. They will still be entitled to child support, but they might lose some of the aspects.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. Zarqa and I really hope that the information provided to you today will prove useful. Please don't forget to visit She Knows Best and click on the legal support tab to access Muhami's incredible features and to be put in touch with Zarqa through Yungo Law. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.